How's it going? And welcome to my continued guide of Chapter 5 of the 5th edition module, Tomb of Annihilation. This video is going to cover level 6 of the tomb, but before I go into any cool names or spoilers or any of that fun stuff, I'm going to warn you that there is spoilers and cool stuff and awesome names. So players, please do not watch this video because this is the creme de la creme, this is the finale, and this is epic. Should avert your gaze and send your DM this way. DMs, go ahead and stick around because we're going to dive into the grand finale of this epic campaign. Alright, let's go ahead and get started. Level 6 is the smallest of all the floors, but that's perfectly fine because this is probably going to be the most memorable of all of them. This is where the grand finale happens. This is where your players are either going to succeed and save the world, or they're going to die horribly and have their souls ripped asunder. So before I go into all of the details of each individual room, some things I'm going to go over is the fact that this floor is home to a coven of hags. These hags are basically the nurse mothers of the dead baby god, the Atropol, and they are here to protect their, baby god thing. The thing about it is they theoretically could be antagonists not only throughout the entire tomb itself, but even the entire campaign. As it does state, these hags do go out and they do cause a lot of damage. They go out and harass people, they kidnap people, they do terrible terrible things. It even states that on this floor here that there is a person theoretically that could be pulled into here just from outside of the jungles. The Coven can be dangerous, especially if all three of them are alive, as they have access to all of their Coven spells. But once at least one of them drops, they should be way, way weaker and easy for your players to handle, depending on what level your players are and how many resources they've spent. The thing to consider is if you really, really want to ramp up the difficulty of this dungeon, the hags can be harassing the players the whole time. They could theoretically, pop in, zap them with a spell, and pop out using their etherealness. But even more so, if your players are trying to get long rest in the tomb and sleeping, the hags can use their nightmare ability and prevent them from getting HP back, which is pretty big. But having the hags harass the party the entire campaign or just the entire tomb is definitely a no fun allowed kind of thing. So really take that into consideration if you are going to use the hags as that. That being said as well, the hags are basically going to sit around and they're going to try and prevent anybody from attacking the Atropol because they know that if they fail, a Serac is going to come for them, and they are deathly afraid of Serac. Definitely more so, they are afraid of a Serac more than they are afraid of your character. Without further ado, let's go ahead and dive right into each of these little areas. Area 71, the Lair of the Sewn Sisters, the coven of hags that is a delightful bunch of devilish fiends. They have a nice little setup here. They've got a cauldron that's frothing with some nasty stuff. They've got some tables and barrels and stuff. But what's really creepy that is specifically laid out in here is the fact that there is a trio of little dolls, and let me go ahead and just show the picture off for it. These three dolls are children's souls that have been ripped from their bodies and put into these terrible little toys. We've got a clay-faced thing. We've got a monkey with the unicycle wheel, and we've got a straw doll. Really, really sad stuff. These kids are terrified, and in fact, when your players walk in here, one of them is going to walk up and say, "Hey, you should leave. The hags are coming back." And if they take that into consideration, they might, run away and, uh, you know, try and interact with the hags in some other way. These kids, though, normally kids are completely worthless in a D&D campaign. Usually they are a nuisance. But these kids are actually pretty dope. These kids have each individual charms, which, if you carry them, will give you a pretty dope effect. Straw Bundle, the straw one, if you carry her, you get the ability to cast Etherealness. You can use this 3 times, which will be incredibly useful because some of the some of the traps around here will definitely want you to be using etherealness, and more so, you could definitely use etherealness in the epic final fight. We have Clay No Face, and Clay No Face basically gives you the ability to not need to eat, drink, or breathe, which certainly could be useful because if you go ahead and backtrack to certain areas of the tomb, then having the ability to not have to eat, drink, or breathe could really help out in exploration. And last and maybe least is Joho. And sadly, Joho gives you the ability of Helm of Comprehend Languages. Also, really, really creepy to note is the fact that there is a cage, and this cage is filled with a hunched over naked figure that is cowering under a blood soaked blanket. Who is this person? It is a clone. Who's the clone of? One of your player characters. Yes, the hags have come basically made this fiendish like clone that is essentially linked to one of the player characters. This clone is malnourished and weak and deformed and is basically being poked and prodded in this cage. This clone has a basically a special link with whoever the real person is, and the hags have been basically interrogating this clone as if they were interrogating the real person. So the hags know all about the party. The hags know what the player characters can do. They know their intent. They know how they operate. And this is really scary because basically this allows you as the DM to no longer need to metagame how your monsters will confront the party. The hags will basically know everything that you would know as the DM. So the hags can definitely use that to their advantage. If you're going up against a melee heavy group, the hags will be bouncing around everywhere. If you've got a range heavy group, the hags might try and single out certain peoples, etc., etc. Really scary stuff. And it also presents the moral conundrum of what do the players do if they come across this clone? Are they going to try and, carry this person along with them? Are they going to put this clone out of their misery? What are they going to do? Really scary stuff. Last and certainly not least, in Area 71 here, we have the final piece of the puzzle. That we have what your players have been working for all this time in the tomb, the skeleton gate. So let's go ahead and take a look at this picture. So this is the skeleton gate. As you can see here, there's the triangle, the square, the pentagon, etc., etc. If your players see this and they have not been collecting those skull heads this whole time, the skeleton keys, then they're probably going to groan and be frustrated and have to climb their way all the way back through the tomb to collect all these skeleton keys. And even more so, if they have only collected one or two, then they'll definitely be upset because they need all five in order to get through this gate. However, it is not only that simple to just bring all five keys here. As you can see here, there's these little gold plates on top of the keyholes. And the reason for that is because they need to pass 5 more trials before they can eventually put the keys into the gate and finally open it. Uh, the five uh, the 5 remaining puzzles are detailed out further here. In Area 72, we have the Trial of the Triangle. This one is pretty mundane. There is simply a glass case in front of a lever that they have to pull somehow. So how are they going to pull the lever? There is several ways that they can do this. They can try and fly through it using Misty Step or Dimension Door or similar magic. However, the easiest solution is if 3 creatures stand around the glass and form a triangle, the glass becomes brittle, and thus they are able to destroy it. Before then, if they try and destroy it, the thing is magic and cannot be damaged. So pretty simple puzzle if they just use a single spell, or presumably 2 spells in fact, because they have to get in and then get out. Or they use telekinesis or some other thing. Then they can easily handle this puzzle. Area 73, we have the Trial of the Square. And in here, they're going to find basically this room. It has a whole bunch of flying sheets of parchment paper. Think Harry Potter, a whole bunch of paper just flying around the room. When they walk in, they'll be able to see that there should be a lever, but they cannot natively access it. The trick with that is they need to basically hit this thing with an anti-magic effect, or they need to go into the ethereal plane to pull the lever. But before they can do that, they are probably going to get accosted by a dust method. This death method has no name, but what is cool is that basically there is a mirror image created of itself. So there's 4 little death methods. This death method can be a pain in the ass because it'll either one make someone weigh 50% more than they normally are, which can have some gameplay implications of not being able to carry some gear. 2, they can do a whole bunch of damage to everyone, but not too bad, only 2d8 poison damage, and it's a succeed and you take no damage. So honestly, not that bad. And last, it can basically cause a random effect of everyone at the table rolls a d20, and the person who rolls the lowest it takes 66 force damage. Yikes. Really, really no fair and no fun. But the thing about it is this Death Muffet is incredibly weak. It's only got 17 HP. And yes, it is harder to hit because it's got the mirror image on itself. But a single AoE into this room is going to destroy it. And more so, if a fighter and someone else gets their initiative off, they can probably kill this thing before it even has a chance to react. More than likely, this thing isn't going to be able to do all of this amazing fun stuff that's listed out. So with the dust method destroyed, your players can try and work out a way to pull this lever. They might have to use one of the doll's etherealness to pull this thing, or maybe someone has the spell in their pocket and is able to get the job done. In Area 74, we have the Trial of the Pentagon. In here, they're going to see that there's a feast laid out, and there is, in fact, a person who looks like a butler who's working here. This person is not really a person. They are a scarecrow, and they are, in fact, working for the Hag Coven. The thing about it is and for the life of me, I can't think of any reason why people would just sit there and eat food or drink beer or do any of this stuff in a campaign or you're going into a dungeon or there's death and destruction. And yet, every single campaign I've either DM'd or watched, which is quite a few, every single group has people that eats this food or drinks this beer. And it is terrible. Let's go over some of the terrible effects that your players will receive. We have the roast boar. If someone eats that, they get advantage on all of their strength checks. However, they have disadvantage on attack rolls against Widowgroat, one of the 3 hags in the coven. Both effects last for 24 hours. Next up, we have the Squash Stew, which is they get advantage on Constitution saving throws, but they have disadvantage on attack rolls against Peggy Deadbells. We have the Iced Cakes, which make you feel energized. You gain 2d10 temp HP, but you have disadvantage on attack rolls against Baggy Nana for the next 24 hours. And last but certainly not least, we have the Frothy Beer. The Frothy Beer is essentially a bardic inspiration. You get a special die of a d6, and you can, anytime you want in the next 24 hours, add that to a d20 roll. The worst thing about this, though, is anybody that consumes this frothy beer is going to then lose their god's connection for the next 24 hours. They lose any special effect that they've gained. If they have the strength, it goes all the way down. If they have the con's the big one. If that con goes down, all of a sudden their HP goes down too. They get the extra attack, it's gone. All these things are gone, and that is terrible. Losing these gods' powers is insanely terrible. And even most important of all about this room, if someone enters this room and sees this feast and sees all this drink and says, I'm not dumb, I'm not gonna eat this stuff. And another incredibly terrible part about this room is if any character walks into this room, sees all this food and drink, and decides not to participate and walks out, they are stricken with an insatiable hunger and thirst, and thus have disadvantage on all ability checks and attack rolls. And this lasts until they either eat something or they have a Greater Restoration or Move Curse or something similar cast upon them. So basically, this is just a straight up, someone's walking away with something bad here. Either you're wasting spells trying to, get rid of all this Remove Curse and Greater Restoration, you're trying to get rid of all this terrible stuff. Or if you don't have that ability, you're going to have to suck it up and either not eat anything or eat something and have something terrible too. The thing about it is, though, is your players should be told of the advantage that they get. They should be told, oh yeah, when you eat the roast boar, oh you feel swole right now. You get advantage on your strength checks. However, they're not going to all of a sudden magically know that they have disadvantage on, some opponent that they're not even fighting right now. Like, that wouldn't make any sense. Same thing with the stew and the cakes, etc., etc. They're not going to know the disadvantage that they have when consuming all of this stuff. However, if the characters drink the frothy beer, they're more than likely going to immediately notice the results. If they have anything that increases their strength, just goes away, they're going to notice that their muscle mass goes down. If they have the con, they're going to know that they feel a little bit weaker. So for all the stat changing ones, they are probably going to immediately notice that this effect is taking place. However, if they don't have these abilities, if they have the abilities that let them walk on walls or cause a psionic blast or attack a little bit more, they're probably not going to notice these effects until they try to do them again. So definitely keep that in mind. Keep in mind who has what tricks or god here, and if they drink it, are they going to immediately feel that connection with their power lost? So eventually, your players, after either imbibing it in the food and drink or choosing not to and suffering, they're going to start looking around for the lever. The lever is pretty easy to find. It just takes a little bit of a perception check, and they can basically put their hand into a hole, and thankfully nothing bad happens. They can simply just pull a lever. So what is the purpose of Mr. Threadneedle here? What is he doing? Well, he actually can't talk because you need lungs in order to talk, apparently. Even though, there's magic in this world, but whatever. Mr. Threadneedle, the Scarecrow Butler here, isn't going to do anything. He's just simply going to, make some gestures, and he's going to nod yeses and nos. However, he is working for the hags, and is totally not going to help them out in any way. He's just simply going to go ahead and, try and coerce the party into eating more food and drink. In Area 75, we have the Trial of the Hexagon. This is basically an homage to horror movies and such things as Bloody Mary, as when they go into the room, they are going to see that there is essentially two levers, but the thing about it is the levers can only be seen in parts of the mirror. There is a cute little ritual here which has you saying piggy, piggy, piggy into the mirror, and if a wrong lever is pulled, then werebores just pop out and start attacking. 3 werebores at once in a cramped room could be a little bit dangerous, but shouldn't be anything too major. It's just a matter of the fact that it's just draining more and more resources from the party. Once they pull the correct lever, then there is no issue. And lastly, for these 5 puzzles, we have Area 76, the Trial of the Octagon. When they walk inside, they'll be able to see something that is a little bit off about this room. It feels as if the floor is fake. And what's also interesting is the fact that there is a nursery book on a table. This nursery book is in Infernal, which this is one of the issues I always have with translating stuff. If there is a language and you translate it to another language, it's not going to rhyme. This nursery rhyme is apparently written in Infernal, but for some reason, when you read it out loud in Common, which is presumably, whatever language you're doing this in, I'm going to assume it's going to be English because you're watching this video. If you read it out loud, it shouldn't rhyme. But, that's just, that happens so many times in movies and shows and video games when you translate stuff and it rhymes. That's not how that works, people. All right, rant over. They are able to basically see that this thing is written in Infernal, which is thankfully one of the things you can use that child's special ability on, being able to comprehend languages. And there's a cute little poem here that says backward, backward, 8 to 1, speak the rhyme until it's done, yada yada. You can read it yourself. But the thing is if you speak this out loud, reading from page 1 to 8, which presumably most people would do, they are going to activate this insanely terrible trap. The room is going to have a reverse gravity cast upon it. Everyone is going to fling up, and when they do, they're going to get ground up into this ridiculous slashing fan. But if they are smart and actually read this before reading it out loud, then they'll be able to discover that if you read this poem from back to front, meaning from page 8 to page 1, then a lever will appear and they'll be able to pull it no issue. I can't tell you exactly how you should run this per your group, but the thing is presumably not too many people are going to be able to speak Infernal, and thus, when this person is able to read this, they are more than likely going to say this out loud. So do not tell your players this. What I would recommend is showing this the nursery rhyme to the individual player or players that can read this. And if they physically say it out loud, then go ahead and activate the trap or activate the reward. It obviously there is sometimes there's some people, there's some groups where someone will say it out loud and someone will say I didn't say it out loud, I was just saying it to the group or whatever. uh you know DM prerogative, player prerogative, do as you will. But I would strongly recommend that if anybody actually says it out loud, especially if you privately gave it to someone and they speak this out loud, and then go ahead and punish or reward them as you see fit. This trap here is easily one of the most killiest of all the traps in all of the dungeons, surprisingly, because unless they have some type of way to either walk along walls, or if they are able to stop the reverse gravity somehow, or they come up with something insane, they are more than likely going to be stuck getting hit by these fans that deal 8 to D10 slashing damage every turn, which is incredibly bad. And this effect lasts for a full minute, meaning that if they don't find a solution in presumably 2 rounds, they are going to die. This trap gets the no fun allowed seal of approval right here. So once your players have activated all 5 levers in these 5 separate rooms, taken the 5 skulls they've retrieved from the previous 5 floors, and placed them into the door, finally, this door opens. However, as they're about to do this, that is when the Coven is going to strike. The Coven is definitely going to hit them hard and going to go after them with all their might because, like I said before, they fear Serac. Every single player here is either going to be injured to some degree, they're going to be out of some type of resource, they might, of course, be cursed and have disadvantage on attack rolls or saving throws or ability checks and all that fun stuff from the feast. And this fight is terrifying. If the group is not fully prepared and not fully up on certain resources, this fight can be an absolute disaster. The hags are dangerous. Their coven spells let them cast lightning bolts around. They can teleport all around. They can shift out if they're taking too much damage. And they will definitely be using the terrain to their advantage. If they're going against the melee party, they are definitely going to appear on the balconies away from them. And basically, once anybody gets close, they're going to go ahead and ethereal out and teleport somewhere else around. They are going to be an absolute nightmare. And as previously stated, they know the players, they know the characters, they know how they operate, they know what is their strengths, and more importantly, what are their weaknesses. So definitely have a fun time with this encounter. Bust out everything because this is near the end. Mind you, it is totally anticlimactic to TPK the party right before the grand finale. But if you're running a game where death is prevalent, then go ahead and go right on in. But more than likely, they're going to damage the party, and the party's going to be able to pull through. It states here in the book that the hags want to steal one of the skulls and disappear into the ethereal plane. That is really, really not cool because if they steal one of the skulls and the group is unable to make it through, then theoretically the hag can just be, moving anywhere, and the group is never going to be able to succeed, and thus the campaign's over. So I would go ahead and ditch that notion of the hags stealing the skulls and just go ahead and have an epic brawl here. Area 77, the Death God's Nursery. This is the end. Cue the James Bond music as they walk down these stairs. They are able to see the reason why they came to Chult in the first place and the reason why everyone in the world is not having a fun time. They spot the Soulmonger, this artifact which is collecting all the souls of everyone who's died, and more importantly, who is currently dying thanks to being brought back to life. This soulmonger is disgusting, and it's actually got some tentacles writhing around it too. Also important to note is that Atropol is here, this dead baby god. In fact, let's go ahead and show off a little picture here. Disgusting stuff. Look at that. That soulmonger looks dope. The Atropol looks dope. This entire area looks crazy. And there's a Serac right there. Mind you, a Serac is not going to be here when the group enters here. The Atchball is just going to be sitting here nursing. In fact, the Atchball is actually not going to immediately react to the players. It doesn't really have a need. It's really inactive, and it's, just chilling here, and it's getting fed. The Atchball is not going to start reacting until combat goes down. And this is where your players are truly going to shine and see what kind of, mentality they have. Are they going to go after the Atchball and put an end to, the birth of this dead baby god? Or are they going to go after the Soulmonger and put a stop to all the death in the world? I am going to go ahead and double back to this area because I'm going to have a big old FAQ and a whole bunch of info on how to handle the final fight. But needless to say, man, is this an epic fight, and I can't wait to dive into that. Area 78, the Chapel of Hate. In the previous room, the Death God's Cradle, there is a portal in the back of the room. If they are able to access it, they'll find themselves here in the Chapel of Hate. And it's a really odd sight, as basically they're going to see that there is basically a ritual sacrifice slab here, and chained along the wall, there's going to be a whole bunch of Nothics. The Nothics are previous disciples of Acererak who have gone crazy because not everyone is up to the task of being a Lich's disciple. And the person here is listed as Zalder Failrond. However, it does specifically state here that this body bag, whatever it is holding a person, and it does give you this creative freedom. It does say it might be Artisimber, it might be Dragonbait, it might be Volotham Godarm, or it might be some NPC that the group has never had a chance to meet, or more importantly, it could be an NPC that the players love. Use this to your advantage. If the players have an awesome NPC that the players love, then have some type of moment where for some reason that person disappears and maybe leave some type of hint or clue that the person was in fact stolen and brought here as a sacrifice. Really tailor this to your campaign and really make it shine, because finding some random stranger named Zelda, part of the Iron Gauntlet, that's boring. Who wants to meet some like random stranger right at the finish line? What's the point of that? Throw in an NPC that the players know and love. Past the chapel, we have Area 79, the Hall of Finality. They are going to be able to see that there is 3 color patterns that go along the floor here. We have purple, gold, and red. Uh, they basically can see that there is in fact several archways that they could possibly go to if they follow these paths. Your players are able to walk into this hallway no issue, but the true magic shines only if they basically maintain their presence on these trails. So let's go ahead and start things off with the red trail. If your players step foot onto this red trail, follow it along, and step into the archway, then lo and behold, they're screwed. They end up in Area 57, the oubliette. That really sucks. Imagine getting right to the finish line, so close to the end, and then all of a sudden ending up in the oubliette. If no one has gotten to the oubliette at this point, then go ahead and do as I previously stated in the area before. You need to take them off to the side, because the oubliette is definitely a special place, and if anybody goes in there, they practically have a 50-50 chance of living or dying. Scary stuff. If the characters make their way down the gold path, they are going to go into an archway. However, they're not going to get teleported or anything. But if they are able to touch it, or if they are coincidentally, for some reason, wearing the eye-shaped pendant found in Area 2, then they are able to find a secret door, which is going to lead them to a cob-filled hallway, which leads them to Area 80. If the characters go down the purple trail, they are going to touch the wall and feel that it fills with mud, and if they push their way through, they are also going to end up in Area 80 as well. But as you can tell here, there is another location along this hallway, Area 81. This is the end. That is where they must go in order to get out of here. They will be able to see a skeleton that is pointing to this archway. However, none of the pathways actually lead to the archway. If they are able to open up this door and not activate the glyph of warding, then they're in luck, because they'll be at Area 81, which is where they will be able to escape from the tomb. However, more than likely, they will activate this glyph of warding, and it is a disaster. There's a reason why there's a skeleton in this hallway. It activates a glyph of warding, which basically sends a wall of flame down and does a tremendous amount of damage. Area 80, the Red Library. If your players make it all the way here, they're going to find a pretty cool and intricate library, which is also being the house of a one Arcanoloth named Mr. Fox. Mr. Fox is simply a prisoner here and cannot escape, and he's basically just passing the time either dozing off or reading. The loot in this place is plentiful. There is a ton of gold worth of stuff. There's a musical box, and there's a whole bunch of intricate, cool books. What's really cool here is that there is a book named the Mystic Arcane Grimoire, which houses 7th, 8th, and 9th level spells in here. Really awesome. Your players more than likely won't be able to use any of this because either one, you don't have a wizard, or two, they are more than likely not going to be high enough level in order to cast it, as it's recommended that the characters be level 9, 10, or 11 here. But what is also really, really cool is the fact that Mr. Fox is wearing a set of spectacles. These spectacles, while might seem mundane, they are in fact a two-way portal to Sigil. Really, really cool stuff. 5th edition hasn't done anything in regards of Planescape or Sigil, but if you are a Planescape nerd and know all about it, then you can certainly craft awesome, epic campaigns and a whole bunch of fun stuff with that. The Arcanoloth, Mr. Fox, is sadly trapped here. He can't escape, he can't teleport out of here, and even more so, he's actually held here against his will and is not allowed to let anybody leave with anything here, none of the books. So if the players do want to grab some of the swag, then sadly Mr. Fox is going to step up and say, hey, I can't let you do this, and it will fight for it. If he is defeated, he will dissolve into an unceremonious pile of goop, and his glasses will remain, however.
And finally, after all these locations, we are finally at the finish line. The very last detailed out little part here, Area 81, the Ebon Pool. This is the location where if your players decide to not want to fight the Atropol, or if they fight the Atropol and actually survive, they can make their way to this area where they can be teleported out. However, it's not as simple as just hopping in the pool easy peasy. No. They must use one of the items they either got from Mr. Threadneedle or Peggy Deadbells, and these are tiny little black marbles, and they can throw these into the pool. What happens if they don't have any of these things? Well, they're kind of SOL. They need these in order to get out of the tomb because there's literally no way to get out of the tomb without doing this, because any type of trying to teleport out of the tomb always ends back up in the oubliette. So your players are going to have to go ahead, and maybe you should drop the hint that if they don't have these and they're still alive and they've won the fight, maybe say, hey, that one, butler dude had like some weird pebbles or something. Maybe you should go talk to him. Maybe they should do something, because if they don't pick up on the fact that they need these black marbles, then they are SOL. So, yeah, they're just sitting there. So if your players hop into the pool, nothing bad happens at all. It's just, black ooze and it's gross. However, if they throw anything in there, like any gear or loot or anything, the items are permanently lost, having been transported to a secret demiplane where they cannot be divined. Any amount of ooze that is removed from the pool automatically disappears. So, so it's not harmful. They can hop right in and play around for all they want. Nothing bad happens. But if they throw something in there, then it's gone. So hopefully they don't get the bright idea of trying to throw in some cool, staff or some magic weapon that they have in their possession. But that being said, all they simply need is to throw a little marble in here, and then they get a cool little sequence of the pool essentially turns into a image of the obelisk that is waiting outside of the tomb. And in there, they'll finally see outside of the tomb, and then hopefully at that point they realize that they can hop right in. So they just jump right in, and they get teleported right outside within 10 feet of the obelisk. And mind you, this happens whether or not they destroyed the obelisk out front or like shoved it down. It's always going to be just right outside there. So no harm, no foul.
While the epic story of diving into the Tomb of the Nine Gods unprepared going against all the odds, overcoming all the traps, destroying the epic and monstrous soulmonger, slaying the undead god, and besting the Lich of Serac, all the while being able to escape and make it out alive. That story might sound cool, but I am here to tell you, more than likely, that story does not get fulfilled. As sadly, the Atropal fight and the Serac fight in the Soul, no matter what direction your players went in regards of the whole campaign, in regards of the Tomb of the Nine Gods, in regards of this fight, it is going to be a pretty memorable experience. There is so many awesome things I've seen and heard both players and DMs do for this whole campaign and this fight. And I cannot wait to see all of y'all's reactions and see what y'all have done. And I, God, I just love this campaign so much. As previously stated, I'm going to be doing a special video on this fight alone because there is a lot of intricacies on how you can change this battle around and how you can make this fight either fair or, more importantly, make it unfair. And with that, we are done. We have hit all of the areas of the jungles, of Omu, of the Fane of the Night Serpent, and of the Tomb of the Nine Gods. That was an epic experience for me, and for anybody that was crazy enough to watch every single bit of it, I hope that was a crazy experience for you as well. My next several videos are going to be involving how to run the Atropal fight, and going to be involved with how you might handle Artist Simber and Dragonbait in the campaign, and a final just video on the overall campaign as a whole, my thoughts, and definitely some things you should change and some things that you should keep the same. That is going to do it for me for this episode. Man, what an epic conclusion here, going up against a god baby thing and a Serac, and either winning and making it out of here alive, or dying but potentially saving the world in the process. That is going to do it for me. Tell me your epic stories about what you are going to do to this fight, and if you've already done this fight, how you have ran it and how you probably want to either improve it or keep it the way it is. That's going to do it for me. Thank you all for watching, and goodbye.